Yeah, so I wanted to dive in and yeah, thank you again for being able to speak with me about your movie. I really enjoyed it. The number of things I want to get to. I guess first off, given that the movie's gotten a physical release this month, it's really cool to see a movie like this in the contemporary era be released on physical disc like that. Why is it important for you to have your film released in that format?
Well, I, as a rabid horror fan, have always had a disposition toward collecting. And I think most horror fans feel the same way. We like to have things physically displayed on our shelf that reminds us of things that we love. So I've had an attachment to having media represented on the shelf. But having said that, we are very aware that we're in an age where that doesn't really happen very much anymore. And so finding out that Deadstream was going to get a physical release was just incredible for us. So we couldn't be happier with it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. The more collectibles, the better, and I really enjoyed kind of having my hands on your film after watching it originally. I did want to dive into the found footage genre and get your thoughts on some of that. It's been going strong for 20, 30 years, and yet you were really able to breathe fresh, new life into the genre. What made you want to take on the challenge of putting a new spin on the found footage genre?
I think that kind of emerged organically. I don't know that that's what we set out to do. I think we wanted to tell a story that would be contained enough that we could do it with a really small crew. And so I mean that's a lot of the reasons that most horror filmmakers go to found footage. But then once you're in that headspace, it's such a fun subgenre because there's so many things you can do with it. So once we were there, Joseph and I got really excited about could this start out feeling much more grounded as a live stream, and then could it go more 80s creature feature bonkers at the end, and could we like would audiences stay for that? And so there was a lot of debate about that, and then we had a lot of fun with our DP brainstorming, if there was a character that was going to go into a haunted house and keep people entertained and do a live stream, how would he do it slash how would we do it? And so a lot of conversations started there about what kind of gear would we pack, how would we place the cameras, what order, and then the way you might interact with comments. I mean, we definitely took, I don't know what you would call it, like technology, yeah, like we took some steps that were out of real life, but we definitely tried to ground it in something that there was technology for, or maybe would there would be soon in the future. And so anyway, so the way we designed the iPad and everything was it was based on ease of how a character could click on a button, view
Mm.
cameras, talk to an audience, and I think that's kind of how it emerged.
Yeah, I think that's incredible, and just hearing your answer there conveys how thoughtful you both were in the construction of that, especially that setup. I do want to talk about that. I really enjoy that brilliant kind of first act serving kind of dual purposes, right? It's not only humor to see Sean, throw the spark plugs out of his car and throw the key down the vent, but it's also, it sets up all the scares to come. I'm wondering how you guys wrapped your head around that opening act and that balance between the horror and the comedy of it.
The opening act was the bane of our existence, honestly. We um we were obsessed with, and particularly Vanessa, there was a time when I kind of moved on from it and figured this is as good as it's going to get. But the first act, having a real time movie where a guy goes from way outside of a house, breaking in, and all the way through like setting up in the rooms, it was kind of a no-win situation. It felt like trying to make it watchable, because as we started to kind of rehearse it or try to like figure out how that works, it's just so clear that we're going to lose the audience if we play it out more realistically. So what you're seeing in that first act is compressed space, walking like very strategically, hitting marks as fast as we can, and we just were compressing all the way through the edit, trying to make more things happen. And we even added in post, after doing some test screenings, we even added like there's a cutaway to the nursery camera where there's nothing, you don't see anything, but the audience in the comments is like, whoa, did something just happen? That wasn't originally there when we shot it, but it was like that we needed more things to happen because just Sean being funny was not really quite enough to keep people engaged.
Yeah, that's something that we stressed about a lot and rewrote a lot. I think Joseph had some good ideas. He really wanted to lean into the setups and promises. So there's a shot of the cleaver on the wall where it really like zooms in. And I remember thinking like, are we being a little bit obvious there? And Joseph was like, no, we need to make these promises. And I think that ended up working really well. So
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Good job, you too, on everything else.
No, I agree with both. I think it worked so well, and I love sitting through that. I did mention there that kind of blend of horror and comedy that first act achieves. You know, your film is billed as a horror comedy, and yet usually when people explore that kind of intersection, it leans more heavily into one than the other. And yeah, I found your film to be a really nice balance between the two. It's hilarious when it's hilarious, but my God, when those scares happen, they really come with a punch. I'm curious how you both kind of navigated that blending of two pretty discrepant genres there.
Well, again, it was something that we were stressing about the whole time of trying to get it right. And we definitely learned a lot about what a scene wanted to be, like if it needed to be a comedy first scene or a scare first scene. And then weirdly, when we got on set, it's almost like we kind of divided. And I think it's because Joseph was focused on performance, but he became very concerned about the comedy and the delivery and the timing. And I kind of started obsessing about the timing of the scares and getting those right. And it's just, we didn't really talk about it. It just sort of happened where we were each kind of fighting for one part of the film.
It was for sure.
Not in a way that we weren't on the same page. It's just.
No, but we represented those two like thoughts. It was for sure a product of me being the actor in it because the thing that was on my shoulders were like making Sean funny. And so that's why, like, that's what I was thinking before we rolled is like, how is the timing of this delivery or my expression going to make it funny? And I wasn't thinking quite as much about like the pacing of walking down the hallway until we would review it or like we'd come together. And then I would start to be more conscious of that.
Yeah, no, it's cool that you kind of both represent those two kind of schools of thought there. I did want to get into a little bit of kind of the subtext of the film. I found that to be very interesting as well. And you're not kind of beating the audience over the head with it, but I think it's very timely and contemporary. I'm curious, kind of from in your words, what kind of message you hope the movie was kind of more subtly sending out.
One message I don't think I've talked about specifically, because we've answered this question a bunch, but something that was on my mind while we were writing it is the apology. I was really excited to have sort of a canceled influencer so that we could make the ultimate apology video within the movie. And in this case for us, it's Sean apologizing for being racially and culturally insensitive. And then he says something incredibly offensive, not knowing that that's what he's doing. And the thing that I was excited to play with there is like when you watch apology videos, it's funny how like a lot of times they will act like they're instant changed because of the outcry, and they will start like really digging deeper into something by accident and saying a bunch of offensive things. And it was like pretty common in apology videos that we were reviewing. So I was excited with like, how do we wrap this into the movie that also brings over that message of like, totally believe people can change. People don't change in an instant because of outcry.
Mm. And again, so much humor in that, laden with, you know, that subtext that you're talking about. I guess just as a final question, if you don't mind, obviously, you're both fans of the horror genre, and the film has been really embraced by the horror community and very lovingly. So I'm wondering what it's felt like to get that level of reception for a film you clearly worked so hard on.
And it feels so good. I think that there was a big aspect of this film where Joseph and I were making something that we would want to see. Because I think when you're making a low budget horror movie, there's lots of advice of kind of a formula of what sells well and what sells well internationally. And we knew that we were breaking a lot of those rules and just kind of making something that we really wanted to see. And the creature designer and makeup effects artist who worked with us, it was stuff that they wanted to see. And so it was really fun to kind of do that and then see that other people respond to it. And it definitely is a really fun part of horror, and being like just knowing that you're connecting to other people has been just a really cool part of the process.
Yeah, I think your film has resonated with a lot of people really positively. No, thank you so much for you both being able to speak with me. Like I said, I genuinely enjoyed the film, and I think a lot of other people will. I'm hoping that it gets the attention it definitely deserves on the new physical release. So thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh, thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for having us.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you, man.